This interview is for information only and should not be considered as investment advice or a recommendation to buy shares in the company featured. Welcome to this Stock Box interview. Hello and welcome to the Research Talks here on Stockbox with Alan Green. Alan, how are you doing this week? It's been a pretty busy week for us, and I'm sure you've been equally as busy.
It has been a busy week, Mark. Yes, and hello everyone. And it's been an interesting start of the week, and of course we've got this bigger macro picture with all of the shenanigans going on in the Red Sea with the Houthi rebels that we were chatting about earlier, Mark, and the impact that's going to have on the markets. Yeah, it's certainly shaping up to be a busy January, and I think I've seen this before. You know, the flow of news and the volume just tends to build and build and build. And of course, this is the time of year when everyone comes back and revisits their portfolio. And you know, if you're going to axe stocks, then a lot of stocks get sold in January, and a lot of stocks get bought too. So of course, all the tips for the year, all the stocks we were discussing, you know, they're in with a shout. And I think we're seeing that activity starting to play out now.
Yeah, indeed. Well, I mean, on today's Research Talks, we're going to cover 4 companies. We're going to focus a bit more on recent news from all these companies who have sort of started the year off with, quite a bang, really. So, I mean, we've got Panther Metals, Golden Metals Resources, Oxford Cannabinoid, and ECR as well. So, do you want to perhaps start us off with Palm? It was a bonga, wasn't it, that the recent sort of discovery of graphite that Darren was very excited about?
It was indeed, and Darren is probably he's the most upbeat, enthusiastic CEO I think I've met, and Darren will know what I'm talking about here. He's absolutely enthused by Panther and its opportunities. And of course, Mark, when we spoke at the Mines and Money show last year, Darren was having lots of conversations with larger mining companies, and I think Abonga is very much on the radar of a lot of major explorers in Canada. And indeed, Jim Franklin, who is an expert on VMS, that's the volcanic massive sulfide systems, said that Abonga is the sister greenstone belt to the Sturgeon Lake greenstone belt, which currently has 5 commercial mines there, and of course Glencore are operating there too. So it's hugely exciting for Darren and the team. And if we look at the Panther Metals share price, it's currently trading just over 4p, and we're, along with other companies in the sector, we're seeing this kind of build in the share price. And indeed, you know, from a charting standpoint, certainly since November last year, we saw the low of 2.55p at the end of November. The stock has risen steadily since then, and with good reason. So I'm not going to go into the other projects today. Suffice to say, of course, they have the Dotted Lake project, Manitou Lakes project. The company also has a 20% stake in Fulcrum Metals, which has exploration projects also based in Ontario and Saskatchewan in Canada. And it has a 23.5% stake in Panther Metals Australia, the ASX listed company, which is focused on nickel and gold. And of course that story continues to develop and has its own momentum. But Abonga is the core focus for Panther. 5 primary targets there: the Wishbone target, the Awkward target, Survey, Ottertooth, and Silver Rim. And of course a phase 1 drilling campaign was undertaken in autumn 2021, which first revealed the presence of a significant VMS, volcanic massive sulfide style system. And the company or the drill team there included discovered significant intercepts, including 27.3 meters of massive sulfide in the first hole and 51 meters of sulfide dominated mineralization in the second hole. But as you say, Mark, the chief focus for the company has been the development with the graphite discovery of late, and certainly the the Bonga Greenstone Belt as a whole is seen as an emerging VMS camp. And I mentioned Jim Franklin's comments just now, in terms of its logistical structure. It's close to the national road transport links, and of course Thunder Bay is just along the road, as it were. It's also some 75 kilometers east of the Matabi Sturgeon Lake mining camp, on that Greenstone Belt that I mentioned. And there is huge there's huge potential for this asset to develop and build. But I think most significantly at this stage already, with what the company have discovered, we're seeing significant interest from players in the region. Significant players in Canada, significant explorers, and companies operating mines in Canada. And of course, if the work that Darren and the team are doing can further prove up the potential of a Bonga, then we could be looking at a Bonga evolving into Sturgeon Lake, and hosting a number of commercial mines. And of course, that will be all down to the work that Darren and his team have done. So I think the share price movement that we've seen this year, the shares, that we've seen two lows over the past week, or over the past couple of weeks, where the shares have just dropped down below 4p, and each time they've come back up again. So that to me is a good sign. That shows confidence, I think, from investors in the Panther story. And certainly, I watched the interview that you did with Darren a few days ago, and it looks like 2024 could very much be the year for Darren and his team in Canada.
I think it'll be very active, won't it, for sure? I mean, on a number of projects there, not just, of course, Bonga's got the graphite potential now that they want to find out a bit more about, but also the VMSs that they've been discovering over there, wanting to find more of them. So I think it's definitely going to be an active year. I know Darren was in a bit of perhaps a conservation mode during 2023, which with hindsight was probably the right thing to do, given how the markets were last year. But looking, I think, to get much more active this year, and get proving up some more of the discoveries there. So good way to start the year anyway. A bit of a surprise with the graphite, but that's great.
It is that it's a real step forward. But I think it's a polymetallic asset. Of course, it's this huge asset. But the shareholders should take a look at the corporate update that the company published on the 2nd of January, which gives a really good overview and summary of the developments to date, and really sets out the stall for this year. So well done to Darren and the team for getting this far. And of course, what I like about Darren, he's absolutely, I'd say, fanatical. He'd probably laugh at this, but I think he's absolutely focused on not diluting shareholders. So very reluctant to issue any shares. Very very keen on keeping a tight cost base and managing the company carefully, and as you say, in conservation mode. Of course, they had the convertible loan note that was issued last year for 200,000. So the company has strategically positioned itself to look after its shareholders and really develop its assets and add value.
Indeed, we're talking about also sort of discovery and potential to start the year off. Of course, Golden Metal Resources, didn't they, at their Garfield project there, Oliver feeling extremely confident, as per his comments in the last RNS.
Well, indeed. I interviewed Oliver about a year ago, and he was talking about these projects. And of course, with Golden Metal, it's been a hugely successful spin out of Power Metal, I have to say. And of course, Power Metal Resources are still holding 62% of the company. They're locked into May this year, but I'm sure Sean and the team won't be selling up anytime soon, because they're already sitting on a decent profit. And of course, the value for Golden Metal has always been staked around the Pilot Mountain project. But as we've seen, the other projects are really coming to the fore. Pilot Mountain project, of course, has a JORC resource estimate of 12.5 million tons of tungsten, and there's also credits for copper, silver, and zinc at the site too. And of course, there are mill claim or mill site claims there to develop the project and to process the ore. So it's well advanced in so many ways, and of course with the focus on certainly with the US government from stopping imports of tungsten from China and around the world. The US government will be very keen to fast track Pilot Mountain and develop it and bring it forward. So that really cornerstones the value of golden metal. But as we've seen, Garfield is now fast emerging as a very strong contender too. So it's a gold and silver copper prospect in Mineral County, Nevada. And if you look at the geology or the geography rather of golden metals claims, they're all close together. Garfield is just down the road, but with the latest development, the company found or reported on the 9th of January that it discovered a new high-grade gold and silver copper bedrock assets. Samples taken from that new ground included 22.7 grams per ton of gold, which is a really important find. And of course, they have now named this the Pamlico Gold Zone. So we now have 3 zones within the Garfield project. We've got the power line zone, the high grade zone, which the grades have already been established there. But having now established the Pamlico Gold Zone, it's going to really sort of add further impetus to the development of the project through the year. And of course, you've got those 2 projects. You also have the Kibbe Basin Lithium Project, which is, of course, the claim package is less than 250 meters from a drill hole that was drilled last year, which returned a significant 169-meter interval of lithium brine mineralization, which is open in all directions. And Kibbe Basin is less than 5 kilometers southeast of Pilot Mountain. So again, I said the projects are close together. Also, the operator of the Gold Condor Summit project, which is an earning opportunity situated at the confluence of the Getchell and Battle Mountain assets. Polymetallic trends in that region. Of course, you've got some famous mines located nearby too, and the Stonewall projects as well. But I think given the excitement late last year with Pilot Mountain, we now have Garfield as a significant asset in the portfolio, adding value all the time. So we're seeing the share price build nicely. We jumped up to nearly a year high so far of 11p, and we're just off that now. So I would expect the share price to push on in the near future as Oliver and the team develop the asset.
Yes, indeed. Well, I'm very excited about the future of that company as well. I like Oliver, good, young, dynamic CEO, and of course, Pilot Mountain being the flagship. But it's massive, isn't it? And that US government grant funding that they're after hopefully comes through as hoped for. But it's always good not to be a one-trick pony, and it certainly looks like, as you say, Garfield has that other potential. I just like the quote, what he said in the recent RNS. I can say from my experience and understanding of the project, geologically and geographically, I consider Garfield holds the potential for a major metal discovery. And I did say this to him. I said, that's a pretty big statement, Oliver. And he said, yeah, and I don't make those comments lightly. So, I mean, it's always not without risk, of course, and it's always good to stay tempered in your enthusiasm for any company on the markets. But I think when Oliver comes and says something like that, and he does have experience, he's a geologist, so that makes me feel quite excited about the potential for Garfield there. So again, I'm looking forward to the year for Golden as well.
Well, I think it's if as we hope, interest rates start to fall toward the middle and part of the year. I mean, we've already seen lenders reducing the interest rates for homeowners, which is a good thing. The Halifax have dropped rates, but of course, if inflation continues to come down too, then that's going to be a key factor. But of course, there is a concern now with the events in the Gulf that prices could go up again due to delays in shipments reaching the UK. But it's just those are part of the macro backdrop conditions that we have to live with as investors. But certainly, I think the opportunity exists to see real growth in some of these some of these microcap explorers, and I think Gold Metal with this range of assets, and also the jurisdiction in which it operates, the USA. I think that it's conducive to developing assets. Nevada's a very mining friendly jurisdiction, lots of support, lots of grants from regional governments. So I think as an investment proposition at this juncture, Gold Metal looks well placed.
Indeed. Well, thank you, Alan. So let's talk about what we want to do. Oxford Cannabinoid next.
Yeah, Oxford Cannabinoid Technologies, and of
Mm.
course, I saw the interview that you did with the with Rob Bennett, the legal counsel at Oxford Cannabinoid, and they have really made significant progress. And I think what we're seeing, that company is very much at a value inflection point because so many factors are now in place. Of course, Oxford Cannabinoid is using the therapeutic power of cannabinoids to develop safe and effective prescription medicines for the treatment of diseases and conditions, particularly focusing on severe chronic pain conditions. And this is the market for pain is huge. I mean, the global market for migraine is worth about 6.3 billion. Cancer pain, 5.4 billion. And it's a market which adds up to some 43, 44 billion globally. But the cannabinoid medicines the company are developing are focused on treating these disorders and treating pain. And we've already heard about the success of CBDs in palliative care and in pain reduction, and the calming effect it has on patients. So the team, headed up, of course, by Clarissa, are working to develop and bring these assets to fruition. And of course, this week we had news from the company that it's filed a European application in its own name for Program 2, which is targeting trigeminal neuralgia, which is a really debilitating condition for patients. And of course, you've got this flashing, you've got a flashing pain across your face and through your head, which is utterly debilitating and incredibly painful. So filing this application will give Oxford Cannabinoid the exclusive rights to the use, production, and sale of the Program 2 composition. And this is a real milestone for the company because it gives the company complete ownership of the asset all the way through, in terms of developing sales and so on. And of course, it's the latest in a series of steps that have brought the company to this value inflection point. The primary asset, Program 1, which targets neuropathic and visceral pain, reached an important milestone last October. The phase 1 trials were completed successfully. A single ascending dose study for OCT 461201 was completed successfully without any side effects. And of course, that will then lead to the phase 2 and phase 3 trials. At which point, of course, we can then look at the commercials to take that out into market. So it's hugely significant for the company. And of course, at that juncture too, we saw Rob Bennett, Clarissa Saruma Coker, and Neil Mahapatra buying shares in the company. So they bought shares in the open market, which is always a great sign. You see directors and people in the team that have skin in the game. And just after that, Dr. Tim Korn, who's a hugely influential scientist, who was already there in an advisory capacity, but he joined the board in an executive capacity. So there's a real sense that events and the development of the assets, each of its assets, are gathering pace. And I think we're set for a hugely significant year. You could argue, looking at the share price chart, that really we're just off those year lows. Year low 0.6p. We're currently trading at 0.8p. We saw a year highs back earlier last year of 1.6p. So I don't think the developments that we've seen over the past few months have in any way been reflected in the share price and the valuation of the company, which currently has a valuation of just under 7 million sterling. So again, you could take this company, you could put it onto the Nasdaq, for instance, and you'd probably see a valuation 5-6 times where we are currently. It's just the way US investors and the Nasdaq tends to value pharmaceutical and life science companies. So I think again, Oxcantech are in pole position now, and I'm sure we're going to see some news flow over the next weeks and months that will start to significantly change the perception in the marketplace and also the valuation of the company on the London market.
Yeah, indeed. Again, another company starting the year fairly well there. Of course, you think that perhaps the news flow from pharma companies is the trials, isn't phase 1 or getting to preclinical and all these kind of things. But then you forget that there's lots of other elements to these businesses as well, like protecting their IP. And then you start to speak to other people in the company, you realise actually these companies are a lot bigger than what we perhaps see when you sort of only often see or hear from the CEO of the company. So it was great to meet Rob and talk about the work he does at Oxford. And yeah, getting some other elements there of the business all sort of tidied up and into the sort of patent IP protection system. So again, yeah, nice to see that program, that company moving on. So let's finish off, Alan, with ECR Minerals. And okay, another company that sort of got a new lease of life as of the end of last year. And well, you know the COO, Mike, fairly well, but I do like his Twitter account at the moment. He's taking a lot of the media that either you do or Stockbox do or they've done on site and making little shorts, isn't he? There's not many of the directors who do that. So
he's Mike. Mike really is a unique asset to the company in that regard. Of course, we've known Mike sort of over the years as Doc Holliday,
yeah.
And his incisive, if there's an issue that needs dealing with, Mike will get straight to the heart of it, within seconds. And you need, I think ECR was at a point where it had these assets that were developing, but of course it's then taking it to the next stage, so investors can see a way forward. And I think, maybe middle of last year somewhere, the company lost its way. It was developing the Longworth assets, it was developing the Victoria assets, but it was almost a case of where do we go next? And then we had the overhang of this of the Hurricane asset, which ultimately, when Nick Tulloch and Mike came in onto the board, it was decided that that the Hurricane asset, although there was potential there, it was overpriced, and given the financial situation at the time, the company couldn't afford it. So of course they now also own the Condabringer asset, which is also up in Queensland, and that license area gives the company access to a lot of the geological anomalies that run through the Hurricane project into Condabringer. So I'm sure we'll see some work up there in due course. But of course, significantly, when Mike and Nick joined the company, 580,000 was raised. There were no fees paid to brokers. It was raised directly from high net worths. Added to which, a salary sacrifice scheme was introduced. So all of the directors took shares in lieu of cash, which has saved the company a huge amount of money. Added to which, the company has sold plant and assets, and they're set to bring, if they sell the property at Creswick, they're going to be bringing in a further $1 million Australian over the course of this year. And what that means is that with the money that was raised last year, they won't need to raise any more money to continue the activities that they're currently scheduled to undertake. And this is hugely significant. And that's why I think we've seen the downtrend when we got to September last year. That downtrend was arrested, and indeed we've sort of seen the shares consolidate around the 0.23 level. We've seen blips up to just under 0.3p. But as Mike and the team develop the drill campaign in Victoria, and we start to get those assay results back, we're going to see, I'm sure, some movement, particularly given what they've been finding there and what some of the local people in the area have been discovering as well. But this week it was all about Lulworth, and I think it's important to remember that ECR is a multi-asset company, and we've had many reports. Adam Jones and the team have been on the ground there. They've been undertaking rock chip sampling, soil sampling from stream sediments, and mapping out the area. And so a summary of the activity was provided, and we had rock chips returned. Reedy Creek returned 22 grams per ton. Stream samples of 205 parts per million. Gorge Creek returned rock chips with 75 grams per ton gold. Stream samples of 1395 parts per million. I mean, that's a huge grade by any standards. Butterfly Creek stream samples of 762. And of course, we have niobium and tantalum mineralization noted at Oakey Creek as well. So what the team have done, they've covered what was initially a greenfield project with some 900 square kilometers of ground, and developed the asset to hone down the key points of interest and the areas of high potential. In other words, the high grade zones. So the team now have a plan of action to undertake trench sampling and drill target generation on those high grade areas during 2024. And of course, we're going to be hearing more about that as the team get on the ground there. But a really good summary. And I think, Mike will be the first to say there are so many other areas in Lulworth they could go to, but of course you have to start somewhere. So they've now identified these areas. They'll start there, and once the work is underway there, once it's been proven up, then I'm sure the team will revisit those other areas. But of course, as I say, we have Conlapringa to consider, which the company haven't been to yet. We also have Blue Mountain, which is on the back burner. But significantly, of course, the key focus is on Victoria with the drilling that's been underway just down the road from the company's property in Spring Mountain, Creswick. We're going to get some assay results from that shortly. We also, of course, have the asset up in Baillieston, which is just north of where Southern Cross Gold made that astonishing discovery. So again, I think 2024 is going to be a bumpy year for ECR, and looking forward to the next news.
Indeed. Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Alan. We covered a few companies there. Did it all in under half an hour. So that's fantastic. Thank you very much. Let's hope this first proper full week of the year sets the precedent for the rest of the year. What do you think?
I think it will. I think, as I said, we have the macro issues which can always have a bearing on the economy and market conditions. But certainly here in the UK, focusing on UK stocks, I think if we see inflation under control, of course we may see a spike in the oil price based on what's happening in the Red Sea with the Houthi rebels. That remains to be seen. But if inflation doesn't get too far out of control, then hopefully we will see interest rates start to fall, and that will create an increasingly risk-off environment and will bring more investors back into market. And I'm sure we'll see retail investors coming back to look at these companies. And also, let's not forget, of course, in uncertain times, gold will continue to build in value, and gold is building in value. And a lot of the companies we've discussed today have a focus on gold, and that, of course, includes Panther Metals, it includes Gold Metal Resources, and ECR Minerals.
Indeed. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Alan. We'll leave it there for this week, and let's speak again in a week's time.
Thanks, Mark. Speak then.
If you enjoyed this interview, then give us a thumbs up, a like, or a retweet. Subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Twitter, and hit that notification bell to be the first to know when we release new content. There's loads of great content on our website too, across all our programs at stockboxmedia.com. Thank you for watching.